welcome to the Varn vlog on this windy night here in the beginning of March. I hope you've all eaten. I hope you're all well. I have a slight cold, so you might hear it in my voice. Wanted to discuss some things that I was going to do a short on. The short ended up getting botched, so I released another short, which apparently offended people. Offending people doesn't really bother me, honestly. But nonetheless, it is what it is, and it's a Friday night, so I don't assume there's going to be a ton of people watching tonight. But it is going to be largely dependent on engagement on what you guys get tonight. So comment away. This is live. This is not a pre-record. So on that note, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Bureau of Labor Statistics information that came out a couple weeks ago, and what we can see in these trends, and how we need to be real careful about how we talk about the rebirth of the workers' movement, because it's still a mixed bag. So I'm going to throw this link into the chat. I'm also going to pull it up on the screen in a minute. All right, so we are going to share my screen here. Let's make this larger. All right. So, news release from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is from January 23rd, 2024. This is the numbers for last year. I'm just going to look at this here. So, the union membership rate, the percentage of wage and salary workers who are members of unions, was 10% in 2023. Little change from the previous year. So, you guys can see that. So, all the stuff that's going on right now has not seen a massive uptick in change. The number of wage and salary workers belonging to unions at 4.4 million also showed little movement over last year. So while there's been some movement at the UAW, that movement still seems to be in areas that are largely small growth for unions. The auto workers are not a huge part of the American workforce. Something to remind yourself of. All right. Not that they don't deserve unions. That's not my point. In 1983, the first year which comparative data is available, notice we didn't keep this data before then, so the high point of unions, we don't actually have any of this data. The union membership rate was 20.1%. So during the course of 40 years of my life, we have seen the union density drop in half. And there are 17.7 million workers. Now, that tells you a lot, because population's grown significantly, and yet there's less workers in unions today than 40 years ago. All right. Let's look at the highlights of this data. Union membership rates of the public sector workers is 32.5%. Continue to be more than 5 times higher than private sector workers at only 6%. The highest unionization rates were among workers in education, training, and library occupations at 32.7%, and protective services at 31.9%. That actually is a change from last year. Last year, it looked like that cops were the largest unions. That's what protective services is, by the way. It looks like teacher unions have actually gone back up slightly above them in unionization density. It's hard to say, though. Men continue to have higher union membership rates than women, Black workers are more likely to be in the unions than white, Hispanic, or Asian workers. And if you don't think that's going to be a cause of some interesting tension, you don't really pay attention. Why is this? It's because there's so many Black workers in municipal jobs that are unionized, like city buses and whatnot. Non-union workers' median wage earnings was 86% of earnings for workers who are in unions. So the median wage of, I guess this is per week, $1,090 versus $1,263. The comparisons of urgence in this news release are on broad levels and do not control for factors that can be important in explaining earning differences, like region in which people live. So it's also important to remember that one of the union states is one of the most expensive states to live in, and that's New York. All right, among states, Hawaii, which has a lot of government workers, and New York, which has historically high union membership, had the highest union rates at 24.1% and 20% respectively, while South Carolina and North Carolina had the lowest at 2.3 and 2.7% respectively. That's because many other southern states have made public sector unions illegal. They tried to really recondemn in my state this year, but they did not get through the legislature. 7 million employees in public sector in the public sector beyond. I can't read tonight. Sorry. 7 million employees in public sector belong to unions compared to 7.4 million workers in the private sector. So we have to remember how much larger the private sector is than the public sector. All right. There's still more workers in private sector unions than the public sector unions, but public sector unions have 5 times the union density. It's just a smaller section of the population. All right. In the public sector, both union membership and union membership rate were little changed over the last year. Remember last year they were down. Union membership rates tends to be highest in the local government level. That's going to be teachers and cops, which employs many workers in heavily unionized occupations such as police officers, firefighters, and teachers. Union workers employed in the private sector did increase by 191,000 to 7.4 million in 2023, while the unionization rate was unchanged at 6%. Industries with high unionization rates included utilities at 19.9%, transportation and warehousing 15.5%, educational services, that's private schools and whatnot, 12.9%, and motion picture and sound recording industries 12.1%. Low unionization states occurred in finance, 1.2%, professional and technical services, 1.3%, food services and drinking places, 1.4%, and insurance, 1.5%. By the way, this is a lot of U.S. employment right here. All right. In 1983, the first year competitor data was available, the union membership workers for private sector workers in non-agricultural industries was 16.8%. Since this time, the rate has generally trended down and is still trending down. And I'm not seeing this discussed that honestly. The public sector union rate has showed little net change from 1983 to 2011, but has since declined to 32.5%. Some of that was Wisconsin, by the way, hence the year. But a lot of it is the end of closed shops. It's frustration with the public sector unions, etc. Among occupational abuse, the highest unionization were in, we've already talked about that, it's teachers and cops. Lowest were food preparation, computer and mathematical occupations, and management. Unionization rate for women changed very little over the year at 9. 10.5%, while the union rate, the unionization rate for men was unchanged at 10.5%. Both the number of women at 66 million and the number of men, 78 million, who are union members changed little over the last year. Racial and ethnicity group, black workers have a higher union membership rate. We're still only talking about 11%. 12%, let's round up. White workers at around 10%, Asian workers at about 8%, and Hispanic workers at about 9%. And they are relatively unchanged. Guys, you're running a Red Queen game. This means you're doing more work to stay where you're at. By age, this is a kicker. Workers age 45 to 55 have the highest union rate at a mere, that mirrors added by me, 12.6%. Younger workers age 16 to 24 had the lowest union membership rate at 4.4%. And of course, full-time workers double the unionization rate of part-time workers. That should 31 states in the District of Columbia had lower than average rates. The East, South Central, and West South Central divisions had union membership rates below the national average, while the Middle Atlantic and Pacific division had rates above it. Surprise, surprise. So the corridor from DC to New York. %, of the 14.4 million union members lived in just two states, California and New York. By the way, if you're wondering why progressives and worker-oriented people have trouble doing anything, and you're always saying follow the unions, well, the unions are where the progressives are already at. I'm going to say that again. The unions are where progressives are already at. Until the unions move into places where they are not at, this will not lead to growth. It's that fucking simple. In 2023, 29% of the 14.4 million union members live in just two states. We already talked about that. These two states accounted for 70% of wages and salary employment nationally. And here's the raw numbers. You can look up this report if you want to. Why am I going over a report like this in such a detail? I don't know. Maybe recent accusations that I'm not relevant because I'm not following whatever dumb shit you guys are talking about on Twitter are that I don't hold back criticisms of everyone's favorite parasocial media cult. Has me wanting you guys to look at the situation as it really is at hand with American unions and workers, with the data that we have. Right? I'm getting a lot of hopes and feels and vibes from you fuckers. But the truth of the situation is union membership is not changing. You do have cool leaders like Sean Fain and, coming up. But you know what? The UAW immediately endorsed Biden, which means that there's not going to be a whole lot of split there. If you want to deal with the Palestine issue through labor, it's going to actually even divide the new, quote, rank and file led unions leadership. It's going to. Furthermore, you're going to get no help from electeds in the squad or whatever. And the ones that you do get help from, I don't know, like Cori Bush, they're getting primated to oblivion right now. Let's look at Cori Bush's likelihood of getting reelected. All right. Just so you get this through your skulls about how this is actually operating, the social democratic moment is over for now. It's over. All right. But just so you know, Cora Bush trailing her primary challenger by 22 points, and she's an incumbent, my friends. And I'll put this in the there you go. So, union stuff largely unchanged. Squad, those who are doing well are turning on you. That's AOC. Those who are not turning on you are losing by a lot. All right. I'm going to go back over the union stuff again real fast. There's some key numbers to look at. It declined in 2022 and it stayed the same last year. The largest unionized states are states where progressives are already in control. So trying to follow union bureaucracy to break out of the bureaucracy of heavily unionized of democratic states and that are dominated by progressives that aren't going to give you the time of day, that can only happen if the union movement grows in areas that are not New York, California, and Hawaii. While the UAW is a big union, the entire auto manufacturing sector is not that large. The service sector unionizations still, by and large, don't have contracts. The Amazon United, there's two Amazons United. The Amazon United Union in New York still does not have contract. And by the way, the Supreme Court is hearing a case around that could literally reverse the Wagner Act. So let's be very clear. Right? Yeah, David A. Power says Michigan did repeal right to work, I think. Yeah, that's good. But healthcare here is 5 times bigger than the auto industry now. Well, healthcare is still fairly unionized. But read Gabe and Winant's book. Every place there was the auto industry, except the South where it's new, turned into healthcare because that was part of the whole Fordist system. And when the Fordist system was eradicated in the 1980s, the way that those cities stayed viable was healthcare concentration. Who else is critical of contemporary union debates besides Platypus? I mean, the SEP is the Social Security Party, which is the people who run the World Socialist website. But you know, Norfight trots are always liking a stunt too. So what are you going to do? So I'm not saying this for you guys to lose hope, okay? I'm not. I'm saying this that if you're going to talk about strategy, real fucking strategy, all right? You need to be much more realistic about where you're at. Blowing smoke up your own ass doesn't help you. Okay. And yeah, so people who've been watching it, I now see the comments have lit up now that I've gone through my 15 minutes of going through the Bureau of Labor Statistic reports to the air. Everybody uses contractors. Like the trend of replacing labor with contractors goes back now 30 years, and it's been. I saw it in medical in the Southeast where there's no no real unionization. I saw that 20 years ago. In fact, a friend of mine got caught up in it for a long time. Would you say the fundamental problems of humanity started with the Finno-Korean hyper war? I don't even know what that means. Is this something about Altaic language theory? I don't know. I want to say that, okay, 2020 was what killed the Sokdim moment, but I might be stretching here. Yeah, but the thing is, the Sokdim moment did it to itself, right? Like I'm reading Al Cochili's like breakdown of the 3 books explaining the populist moment, the death of the millennial left, and by Chris Catron, populist moment by Anton Yeager and Antonio Borriello. And the Vincent Bevins book. The Bevins book is the one I find most problematic because it's clear he's an excellent journalist, but he's not a historian, and it really messes up his analysis. But I'm not going to go too much into that today because I went into it elsewhere. Yeah, the World Socialist website criticizes union discourse in between attacking the Me Too movement, and complaining about BLM. Where do you fall in the debate on what sectors to target next for organizing? Look, if the UAW gets real ambitious, they would start organizing downstream in related industries and not just in industries that are easy to get into. But they're hard to organize because you start dealing with the franchisee shop system. So like there's more people who service cars than who make them, but the people who service cars are in like franchise shops, car dealerships, stuff like that. It's very hard to get strong union contracts out of that. All right, because instead of having one massive industrial shop, you have a bunch of little franchise shops. But unless you start building that out and building that into logistics, such as trucking and whatnot, you got a problem. The problem with trucking is kind of unique to the nature of individual logistics because trucking, even if you're working for people, kind of has petit bourgeois incentives. So there's been a long history of trucking strikes being reactionary or even being used by intelligence agencies, but they're vital to the system and you can't shut them out. I mean, it's not like employed truckers aren't workers and employed petit bourgeois truckers are not petit bourgeois who could potentially be on your side. It's just that their interests are that's a highly atomized profession. You're literally fucking in a car all day by yourself. All right. Like, think about why Marx called the peasants, like a sack of potatoes that don't congeal, right? Like, yeah, truckers are like that, but you need to have logistics on your side. Logistics unions tend to be stronger, which is why like stevedores unions and shit have not gone away, but they have automated so much of that. It's just not a huge part of the workforce anymore. However, it's pretty crucial, right? So you need to start looking at industries like trying to unionize the service sectors that service their industry. So the UAW maybe should start looking at like unionizing, I don't know, dealership tax or something. But that's going to get real pushback. The other thing that you're going to have to deal with is there's a real chance that the Supreme Court rolls us back to before the Wagner Act in the next year. That would be insane. That would mean like you could use RICO cases for union activity and whatnot. It would get rid of the NCLB, etc. I'm not sure this court would do that, but I'm not sure it won't. This court has been very hard for me to predict. It swerves reactionary when you don't expect it to, and it swerves non-reactionary when you do. I don't know. But yeah, it would be very bad for that to happen. Although it might be good to break up the union's dependence on the Democratic Party for fucking sure. But that would be a bitter, bitter, bitter pill. It's a possibility, by the way. I'll talk about. Let me actually look that up. All right. So far, the Wagner Act is held constitutional many times. The last challenge that I know of was the National Labor Relations Board versus Jones and Laughlin Steel Corporation. That was in 1937. But as of February 26th, and this is from Reuters, there's a bunch of companies, including Trader Joe's and Amazon, and also SpaceX. That's fun. Arguing that the NCLB is unconstitutional. So, and given this court's lack of giving a shit about stare decisis, I just don't know how it's going to go. What's good, brother? Hope you're having a good day and not a midday like those opportunists and sectarians. Harper High says people should understand the Supreme Court can basically do whatever they want and mostly doesn't fall along obvious political lines on most issues. Yeah, they don't actually. One of the things that we have to consider is even now there's more Supreme Court cases that are unanimous than not, and some of them are real clunkers. I'm not a lawyer. I only trained to be one and decided I didn't want to. So talk to one of the lawyers on my show about that. I don't know. There's plenty on the left, I hear. I seem to talk to them all the fucking time. So, recap. Labor, pretty stagnant. We're running a Red Queen game. We're doing more and more to stay the same. 2, Supreme Court, real bad. 3, Squad, betraying you or getting primaried to shit. On international issues, I don't know. I'm waiting for more news about whether or not the DSA is still running out of money. For those of you who are patrons, I talked about that. I didn't talk about it in public because I didn't really want to start, I don't know how fun it is to listen to me talk about internal debates about DSA funding lines, but it ain't great. Oh, that's funny. You're either a failed revolutionary who becomes a lawyer or a failed lawyer who becomes a failed revolutionary. DSA LSC just dropped an article on the budget. How bad was it? Does anyone know? You guys got me on a rare live show on a Friday night, and I'm running out of voice, so take advantage. Thank you guys for thanking me. I've gotten a lot of hate lately. Well, actually, I haven't got much more hate than I normally get. Let's be honest. I just gotten it from people who have been longtime fans. Any poetry books I recommend? I don't know. What am I reading right now? I would recommend you don't buy anything from the. Of course, there's a history-altering genocide going on right now. You dipshit. You know what, Biometronome? Get fucked. Guy starts his day by calling me irrelevant for explaining sectarian and then tries to like play a trick as if I'm denying that the Palestinians are getting ethnically cleansed right now. Do you know why I don't talk about that all the time? All right. One, because you guys are flooded with information on it before we even have all the information on it. And two, I think it's ghoulish to profiteer off of it. Right? When I have good news or I have a Palestinian expert, I will put it up. And by a Palestinian expert, I mean someone from fucking Palestine. But a lot of them are being overtaxed right now as experts for good fucking reason. And a lot of them are dealing with a lot of shit. I don't know. So yeah, I'm completely aware of what's going on. Come in here, start a fight with me. I don't play that. Particularly when you're trying to misrepresent my fucking opinion. All right, let me answer some of these other questions. Am I hyped for Doom? Sure. Are people still making the mistake of concentrating their efforts on the DSA? Absolutely. What are the chances the Wagner Acts are struck down? Unions would actually become more dependent on Democrats. I actually have no idea. I haven't played that out. They might be more dependent on protections from Democrats at the state level, actually. How can I nudge a Green Party person away from their fantasy? I don't know. I don't know about that, man. I've never had any luck trying to talk anyone out of any sectarian grouping. Ever. They have to discover it on their own. You once said that universities are increasingly a joke. What do you mean by that? Studies showing graduates don't have much higher writing and reading skills? Well, I mean a lot of things. I mean a lot of things. One, I mean that undergraduate programs are increasingly doing what high school programs did 40 years ago. But high school programs, when they did that, had higher dropout rates. And, you know, they were not very equitable in their results. Two, there's a whole lot of concern about transferring things into transferable skills and whatnot. which basically undermines the meaning of a lot of the larger context for education. These are compartmentalized and highly specialized education for people who outsource their thinking on almost everything else in their life to other people. It's a hyper-specialization problem. I mean, it's a predictable hyper-specialization problem, but it's one that there's no easy way around. So those two things together, meaning that the bottom end of the colleges is actually now just trying to train people up for basic skills because they're not getting a lot of it. Some of those basic skills you can get yourself if you know how to use YouTube and whatnot, but you have to know how to use it. Universities also haven't really adapted to that change. So it's a very out-of-date, outmoded infrastructure trying to deal with major changes in the economy. Let's see here. Would you have Daniel on to talk about his Nietzsche book? Yes, I'm talking about. I might even do an event with Daniel in DC in June. We'll see. That won't be on his Nietzsche book. That'll probably be on something else that I'm not going to announce because Daniel hadn't told me that he's cleared all that for me to announce yet. But yeah, I'd love to have him on. I have the Nietzsche book back there, actually. Let me see. Where's it at? Or is it downstairs? I have the book. All right. Any insights on potential outcomes in Gaza, Palestine? Well, Steven Pinker's been proven wrong. But I don't have any more insights than that. I've been playing with two ideas about why we're not seeing more from the U.S. on this. I mean, Biden's done even less than Obama has done, or even less than Reagan did during the Lebanon crisis to ease the situation. Part of me thinks that's because Biden's afraid that Netanyahu may actually truly go rogue. Particularly given that the souring of relations between Russia and Israel, which was kind of unexpected very recently, that's a real possibility. Part of me thinks that this is part of it, I don't know. I have a hard time on this one. I don't have any. I don't want to play Nostradamus on a war that I have. That so far my worst instincts have been confirmed. Is Portland DSA a healthy chapter? I don't know. Please take a look at Sam Husseini's vote pack essay when you have a chance. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Stuff about Palestine. I'm staying in the city to like the first Muslim majority city council, Hamtramck. Yeah, that's right outside of Detroit, right? Yeah. I have a friend of mine who's from around there. Critical theory, member school is one that comes to mind, but there are way too many. They are way too postmodern, and I mean that way. The vocab is meant. I don't know what that means. Been on seeing some discourse on Dune about the director taking out the overtly Islamic inspired elements. Yeah, I mean, yes. Although I think because I got some pushback on that. What's interesting about that is I don't think Frank Herbert was actually condemning Islam at all. But he wrote that Herbert's politics are weird. He was a reactionary politician who also was really big on indigenous liberation and wrote a novel about it. He also was super skeptical of savior narratives, of any savior narratives, but also white savior narratives in particular, which makes that criticism of Dune's like, oh, well, read the other books and you actually see that like that's part of what Herbert's making fun of. But Herbert's not making fun of it from like a left position. He's making fun of it from a very right wing one. But an anti-imperialist one. Make of that what you will. That's Herbert. Villeneuve, I don't know. Villeneuve's more aesthetics than anything else. Good aesthetics. He doesn't ruin the meaning of books, so more power to him. I like the first one. I think the second one will probably be pretty great. Oh, Green New Deal, not Green Party. Oh, Green New Deal stuff. That's a even harder to deal with. Do you think banks are going to start lending again in 6 months or so? This is causing the wealthy to buy assets and then my surprise highs, especially in real estate. We might see 2 or more. I don't know. I would actually kind of doubt it. I was reading Nico Villarreal write about how there's some weakness in the banking sector because of agricultural yields being so low and a lot of agricultural loans not coming back in. Half of high school grads are at high school level jobs. Well, that makes sense. How are the water levels in the lake? I mean, I guess you mean the Salt Lake doing? I know California's gotten a lot of snowpack up. Did it make it all over? We got plenty of snowpack. We've had a lot of rain, but it's been unseasonably warm here. It's spring already here, which I know you're like, well, it's March, but yeah, but that's not normal in Utah. February started spring here. That's real not normal. It should be. We normally have about 2 feet on the snow on the ground, and we don't. But we do have it in the mountains, so I don't know. Looks like it's going to be an okay year. We're going to avoid the arsenic crowd for a little while. Two or more generations expunged from the housing market in Toto, renting for life for a generation. Yeah, well, that's because a lot of the baby boomer properties are just being bought up as real estate investments. Absolutely. People are getting blackpilled because degrees are getting you nowhere up the social hierarchy unless you got some hot trendy shit. Yeah. Well, basically now you really need to be in a hype and an elite school for it to give the same advantage, and that's just solidifying already established social advantage. Have you heard about anything about the Class Struggle Action Network? No, unfortunately. You need to finish in schools. I would agree with that. All right, so apparently the Class Struggle Action Network is something popping off in the Pacific states since last year. I'll check it out. I'll look it up. I saw Tech getting slammed by some lefty Nietzscheans. I'm somewhere between the lefty Nietzscheans and Touch on this debate. I have been for a long time. I wanted to have some pro Nietzsche leftists come on my show, and they haven't. And Tut has always agreed to, so it's kind of like, you know. I mean, Tut's book so far is better than Micah Bull's anti-Nietzsche book from 10 years ago, or 14 years ago, however long ago it was now. All right. I missed something. There's a big conference related to real estate finance in relation to climate change. A lot of industry is freaking out now. Yeah, they should be. They didn't do anything. It's going to be highly unstable for like a lot of the richest property value areas in the country are going to lose a fuck lot of property value in the next 20 years from natural stuff. So who knows? All right. Guy sent 2 letters to white and Muslim constituents playing both anti-Muslim nativism for whites and pro-Palestinian sentiments for Muslims. What I mean by anti-Muslim nativism is like, nah, Varn's level of nationalism. That's fucked up. It's been very warm in Ontario this winter, rarely above zero. Very little snow, then it melts. Yeah, same here. It's not. We don't usually have a lot of weather below zero, but we're normally in the teens and ones, and we're not. Redlining regulations that prevent Fannie and Freddie from excluding problem areas. I think you're going to see a lot of that. Derek, can you put the crisis in China in perspective in comparison to the crisis in the U.S.? Well, on one hand, it's larger, and I mean, like it's the largest. It's the largest housing problem bubble burst in the history of ever. On the other hand, it's a smaller part of the Chinese economy. What it looks like now is China's just now a mature capitalist country with 5% growth like everybody else. Not great. What I can tell you is Xi does not seem to want to pour liquidity into the economy to kind of stabilize that. Maybe vulgar MNT style, which a lot of people have been calling for him to do. He is not doing it because he thinks it would weaken the workers and make them more dependent on the state. Actually, he also kind of said it would make him like lazy Westerners, but it's gonna get weird there. I can tell you this: the Belt and Road Initiative, as you guys knew it before 2023, is pretty much shuttered for a while. We'll see if it comes back. You know what? I've been surprised we haven't seen more anti-Muslim nativism, but what we have seen is like a general trend towards Palestinian support, but then the kind of vague Zionist support is no longer vague. It's now ideologically hardened, but it's a minority. I think it's a minority position in the U.S. I mean, Muslims are effectively a larger constituency in the U.S. than Jews, and the U.S. has more Jews than anywhere else on Earth. So I don't, figure that out. So, and in a very real sense, those communities around Dearborn could actually decide the next election by if they sit out for real or not. And God knows I wouldn't tell them to vote for anybody. All right, got caught up with questions. More questions before I go. I don't have a lot of voice left. Sorry for losing my shit on that dude. He started a fight with me in the comments before the show even started. And they should be pissed. They should be fucking pissed. Biden's not even pulling a fucking Reagan in Lebanon? I mean, come on. You mean to say you're not pro-Biden? Uh-oh. What is your take on some people looking to China or Russia as a savior to our politics? I would say they've given up. You can't ask someone outside to save you. You live in a nuclear armed nation. Like, you want better relations with Russia and China, you're going to have to actually take some political power. So it's just a non-starter, even if multipolarity and a recognition of multipolar world. And by the way, I've said this over and over and over again. I even said it to Adnan Hussein recently. Multipolarity is like rain, but you can get all kinds of different kinds of rain. Some rain look like the 19th century with nuclear bombs. I don't think anybody wants that. Despite what people at certain ambivalently colored areas may think. Organized, then doing the boarding work and building a base and working towards an actual political power. You know what? If people want to, if the people who want to build a socialist republicanism, I'm not gonna like. That's not my way. I think it's still too fucking methodologically nationalist, but I'm not gonna stop them, right? If they want to join up with an actual workers movement, fine. But people need to do their goddamn work, one field or the other. I know where I'm at. How do you suggest we build political power, not including traditional unionization? You need lots of parapolitical orgs to coalesce together to be able to do functions together. It's not going to happen any other way. All politics, even revolutionary politics, is coalitional. It's what class those coalitions come out of that's important. I don't have an easy answer for it right now because I mean things are weirdly grim. And what's amazing is in some ways we have the most left-wing movement in the United States in the past 10 years, and yet they failed the most. I mean, objectively speaking, the Gen X left kind of got more done. That should really bug you. Now, I realize that like the generational talk, it kind of gets tired of people saying, well, the generational blah, blah, blah. I'm like, look, the baby boomers were a big enough generation that it altered the entire infrastructure of the United States. And they happened at a time where the U.S. was rich comparatively to everybody else. It was, so in that sense, the baby boom is the only real generation, but the rest of us have micro level experiences we deal with. And certain age, you age out of your ability to act. You know? So one of the problems that we have is that we really did truly and sincerely throw everything at a Bonapartist figure. Now, here's one thing I'm going to say. That is not unique to us. Everybody's doing Bonapartism right now and not getting much accomplished for it. The only reason that Trumpism got more done is that they stacked the courts. But the courts don't just take diktats from the executive. So what the social democratic movement did was revitalize the center of the Democrats. That's not what they meant to do. I'm not saying that's what anyone set out to do, even the squad, but that is what they did. And it was easy to see that it was going to happen. All you had to do is game theoretic that out. The whole promise was the following. We need populism so we can bring back the workers' movement, so we can get Bernie in. With Bernie in, we can bring back the workers' movement. Note that this required to do this. All right, so this is actually an interesting question. So you mentioned before there are two counterforces currently before us. One is increased specialization and complexity and totally clued up and bubbled, and the capacity to have more means than before, but to assert or create means for some collective agency needed to move us forward for capitalism. Well, one of the things that complexity does is it actually de-skills you, ironically, because you become so hyper-skilled in one area and so de-skilled in others that if you don't act in large coalitions, if you're able to be broken up in regions or subclasses or races or whatever, which is a lot easier to do, right? Because you're also not working with those people on a daily basis. It's actually it furthers division and alienation. Furthermore, there's just a lot of the structure of the U.S. workforce that still hasn't been dealt with through the franchising and whatnot that we kind of pretend hasn't happened. In many ways, Nico Villarreal is right. The enfranchisement of the population and the bourgeoisification, the mid-sized small business, not the mom and pop stuff, but also not massive mega corporations, which were the thing in the Fordist, actually really changed the nature of a lot of the workforce in the United States. So what are you going to do about that? Yeah. Any thoughts on Sarah Wagenknecht's? Excuse me. Wagenknecht's new party. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be enough to do anything but finish dissolving Die Linke, as the Greens and the SPD have totally screwed up. And it looks like the ADF is a real possibility in the future. I don't know if Wagenknecht's party is gonna be able to do much about that. We'll see, though. I mean, I don't feel like I don't have a good enough taste for what's on the ground in Germany right now. All right, Andrew Rubelis says the surplus population increases. I don't know that it's going to increase. I think there's a lot of people just dying. But I do think an attempt to control surplus population is why you're seeing these draconian immigration policies really kick up, even under Democrats. Do you think that people will push for a lower hour work week to spread the labor around? I think eventually we might get it here. It's hard for me to imagine though what group's going to pull for it. We need about 30% of the population in unions. We have about half that. Speaking of Europe, homeboy Macron said he was open to sending NATO troops to Ukraine. Yeah, I doubt the U.S. is going to let him. God, that is. I remember Deep State Cuba praising Macron for being the most serious European politician, and that is an unserious statement. Ukraine's in trouble. I mean, everyone's in trouble. The Ukraine war has made everybody look bad. But the average soldier in Ukraine, I think, is now like something like 41 years old. That's bad. It's bad. JPS, fun question. Feel free. What's your most conspiracy pill belief? That the Secret Service accidentally shot JFK trying to respond to Lee Harvey Oswald. Do I know it's true? No, but it explains everything without a massive conspiracy. Oh, whatever happened to Deep State Cuba? He doesn't do as many shows anymore. He's busy with his life and his job. He still occasionally will be on debate breakdowns with Ben, and sometimes I will too. But I think he, a lot of people have left. I think you're going to see a lot less commentary. Deep State Cuba hasn't left though. He's just busy with his life. All right. Oh wow! I missed a comment about endnotes. Given the atomized state of people asked described in endnotes 4, my least favorite of the endnotes books. It sounds like the solution is to build up social networks is basically prerequisite to any sort of power. I agree with that, though. It's the second thing I agree with. I can tell you why it's my... but the Jewish population is larger here. Actually, where's here? It's in the U.S. Jewish population is larger in the U.S. than in Israel. Absolutely. How much do you see labor rupture due to AI or LLM, like by 2030? Do you think it'll have some significant... I think it's going to further proletarianize certain creative functions, but so far it's not very efficient. And it's being trained to do dumb shit. But I don't think that'll always be true. But I also don't think it's going to be this massive labor killing thing that everyone's predicting it be either. I think we don't... I think it will... I think, I think there's a reason why it came out at a time where the population is declining. So, Derek, are there any adults or semi-adults in the room in the broadest sense? I don't know, man. Work a lot of jobs I can't automate because of cost benefits of most mid-sized companies. Yeah. There's a whole lot of stuff where a person is still more economically feasible because you can use them for more things. Don't read too much to lose. My bet nor to lose. I wish I hadn't lost my house in the divorce. I'm not bitter about that, though. Oh, yeah, no. The LLMs will have a recursion problem. They're already becoming more and more generic. Like, I've actually seen it in students cheating. Our municipal elections they're the only elections I think are worth focusing on. You don't have a broad enough power base for national elections yet. And I know I'm very unpopular because that sounds like localism, but it's not. I'm not saying people should focus on local issues because local issues are the only, are somehow more salient than national issues. I'm saying that right now, if you want to get to national issues, you get in on local issues because often there's no one to oppose you. The problem that people have, though, is they kind of want to stop there, or they haven't thought about the larger systemic issues of what they're dealing with. I did a whole video on this, like on school boards and whatnot, how the funding lines work, this, that, and the other. You can get around that, but you have to coordinate. Cheating. I've heard college students tell me that most of their classmates use ChatGPT. All of them use ChatGPT. They also get caught a lot using ChatGPT, but we're not allowed to kick them out anymore. I'm serious about what I just said there. Favorite album? Probably White Trash Heroes by Archers of Loaf from 1999. But cheating was high before. Cheating's been really bad for many, many years. If I told you that a lot of my job now is just catching cheaters, it would not it would not surprise you. It makes me feel like a cop sometimes. Yeah, local issues are good for organizing community building because it communicates practical ways with diverse groups of people. Absolutely, and also you can do stuff. All right, something about the Matrix. Can you use ChatGPT to catch cheaters? You can use they actually ChatGPT is used in plagiarism software to catch cheaters, yes. But it's not always good at it. And sometimes it actually accuses people falsely, believe it or not. Jan Shimura says, given the Klug and doing local changes, reforms, and a huge amount of specializations, does it mean I give a better reason to go to actions to attempt to circumvent the bureaucracy entirely, aka direct action? Well, you're not armed well enough. I don't like that element of the state is often avoided by communization, and it's always made me kind of mad. I don't think that piecemeal stuff works very well at all. Have you ever thought about doing an episode on the PCI of the Party Communist International? I find it interesting how quickly a huge communist party destroyed itself and embraced neoliberalism. Oh, you mean the Communist Party of Italy? Okay, not the Communist Party International. I've thought about it. I've thought about doing getting some specialists on Italian communism in general. Because it's a wild scene. Are some special ed students mainstreamed even when disruption because equity pushes this up budget cuts? Or it's just a way of woke washing it, whatever rhetoric is convenient. I actually think it's just a way of woke washing it. Most of that has to do with the fact we do not have enough special ed teachers. We do not have resource rooms. We do not have the people, the staff in school suspensions. And so you see the same trends, even without the same rules in area to area. Now, do I think that every student council person knows that? No, I think a lot of them think they're being sincere in protecting equity, but it's it's a very weird way to protect equity. I've thought about doing a series on Eurocommunism and a series on Maoism. It's just going to take me a while to find specialists on that. All right. In California, they give debt relief if you go into special ed. Same with math and Title I schools. Yeah, they do. And they still can't get people to do it, can they? I mean, look, California loses teacher. It's a fucking Utah. All right. Which edition of Eclipse phase is better? The Gonzo transhumanist first, or the more aesthetically and mechanically tighter second? Probably the second. All right. My voice is giving out, guys. So 3 more questions. Would you ever have Bowman on? If I could get William Bowman on to talk about carbon ideologies or to talk about his massive on violence book that you can't buy anymore, I totally would. Yes, 100%. It hasn't occurred to me to ask him, but I could definitely do that. I've read everything Bowman's ever written. I love Bowman, even though he's too wordy. Europe Central I don't agree with everything in Europe Central. And he does have a kind of Gen X glib anti-communism that I don't love, but what you gonna do? Carl Jeffson asks, do you think we're coming at the end of our bizarre post-neoliberal cycle of accumulation? Do you think the investor folks seriously when they say it'll all end in a debt crisis? I have no idea what they mean by a debt crisis. I mean, the thing is, we should already be one. One of the things that I hate to agree with Warren Mosler on something, but he's not wrong about this. I just had him on my show. But we always forget when we talk about the cost of debt that they also pay this. They also pay the interest to people. It's not just paid in; it's also paid out. So it's actually a very investor friendly way to get money out there, and it's really regressive, even more than QE was. But I do feel like eventually, I mean, if nothing else, de-dollarization is not going to happen today or tomorrow, but it's happening in the long durée. People have been predicting the imminent death of the dollar in less space for literally my entire time in less space. If you go back and listen to the first episode of the OG 2012 Pop the Left, which I don't even think you can find anymore. I think maybe Doug Lane destroyed it. I don't have a copy of it, or I posted on my Patreon. But the thing we talked about was people predicting the death of the dollar in 2011, 2012. So, however, the dollar does seem to be less and less part of the global forex basket, as does the pound. So that will change things. If that gets severe, then yes, the debt crisis would actually start to matter, because people would not take dollars outside of the United States. All right. Allegedly, UCL teacher program used to have 3 cohorts of 25 students for multiple subjects. Now they only have 1. No, we are teaching as a profession is fucking dying. Mike, and hell, once I get my student loan forgiveness done, now I'm back in the U.S., who knows? I might not do it forever either. I probably will, though. All right. Otherwise, what? Thanks for watching. Good night. Good night. Drunk in the Press Vader. Take care. By the way, Varn, I saw you replied on Patreon. Thanks. You're welcome. Oh yeah, China does not want to be the global reserve currency. No, and particularly not now. It would lose. It'd be that'd be a big problem. You have to act like the U.S. to do that. Why would you want to do that? Anyway, I've actually argued with that with people for a long time. It's been something like I've been fighting with, not directly because he won't talk to me directly, but I've been kind of arguing, shadowboxing with Michael Hudson on this for many years. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to sign off because I don't have any voice left. Have a great rest of your day.